Okay, everybody, here we go. It's me, Gregory Mannarino. This is my newest segment of Marcus A Look Ahead. Let's talk, you and me. Let's start off with this. The economic news just continues to come in worse and worse and worse. I mean, just don't even take my word for it. Let's look at the yield curve, something we talk about all the time. We have never seen, ever before in history, a yield curve more inverted than we have today. And clearly, just look back on history, this is a sign that things are going from bad to much, much worse here. Now, with regard to the consumer here, what did we just find out? Basically, it comes down to this. The consumer is getting crushed. They are carrying their highest debt loads ever in history, and it just doesn't stop. People can't make ends meet. The savings rate is gone. And what people are doing here, just to try to stay, I guess, above water, is drowning themselves in more debt. Again, with household debt, personal debt, credit card debt, consumer debt at record highs. Loan defaults continue to skyrocket more so than even during the quote-unquote Great Recession. Now we have the issue of inflation. By their own numbers, inflation continues to rise. Let me ask you this, honestly. How is it, in your opinion, that every single projection with regard to where inflation would go has been 100% wrong via not just the Federal Reserve, but the Bank of England, the European Central Bank as well? Do you think that's kind of odd how they're 100% wrong? They've been 100% wrong? Or is this deliberate? In my view, and I would imagine in yours as well, this is no coincidence that they've been 100% wrong. Meanwhile, you and I have nailed it to the wall since day one. And I'm going to let you know on a big secret. Are you ready to know what that secret is? We're not done. Central banks are going to continue to inflate, meaning grow global debt. Debts and deficits continue to skyrocket out of control. You're going to see things, for example, other reasons to pull cash into the now from the future, and this is massively inflationary. The hundreds of billions of dollars that have now been pledged by the United States and other nations around the world to rebuild Ukraine, where does that cash come from? No developed nation on earth has this cash stashed somewhere. It has to be magically created out of thin air. And who supplies that? It comes from the central banks. And you can't inflate like that and not have, inflation continue to rise. That's the biggest tale that has been sold to the people of the world since it started. And the mainstream propaganda is just playing right along in lockstep. And as a matter of fact, I mean, if you're flipping through, CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business, what are they doing? They're parading out this freak, that freak, some other freak to tell you. Again, they dictate your life to you that, inflation is going to come down significantly. That was Powell last week. Fed Chair Powell last week during his testimony before Congress said specifically, inflation is going to drop significantly moving forward. This projection as well is going to be wrong, as we all know, because this, again, what is the Fed doing here? Incrementally cutting rates along with the other central banks as well, and a miracle is supposed to happen. You and I knew from day one this would not work. We laughed at it. We laughed when we found that central banks were going to raise rates, and by some miracle or act of God, inflation was going to come down here. No, they continue to expand global debt exponentially. This is how the debt-based system works. You're not allowed to know that. And with regard to inflation, you haven't seen a damn thing yet. Now, let's put a couple of other things into perspective looking ahead here. We have watched a pretty epic ride lately with regard to commodity prices, crude oil especially now below $70 a barrel. In my opinion, and again, I want you to do your own research on this, commodities are going to rebound, and they're going to rebound in a big way moving forward. These are real things. Understand how they work. You have the market twisted upside down, where you have the paper derivative market dictating what the price should be for a hard asset. I'm referring to gold and silver, and even commodities, crude oil as well. When you see, for example, crude oil has been all over the place like a yo-yo. All right, crude oil is the lifeblood of the market, the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex. They will not allow it to fall. It may fall more from here, but it's not going to stay there. So the opportunity lies in crude oil, commodities, obviously physical metals, gold, silver, my favorite of all time. But when you see the price action of these things drop 3, 4, 5% in one day, we're talking about physical assets like millions of barrels of crude oil that are just being real crude oil that's being sold. No, it's the derivative. And the derivative is dictating the price of the actual asset. It's completely upside down, and it's completely fake. Speaking of a problem area here in the market, it should be pretty obvious to you. We've been witnessing over the past several months, and we've covered it here, clearly what appears to be instability in the global debt market. The global debt market is responsible for the functioning of the economy of the world, the financial markets of the world, for the financial system of the world. That's the truth. The debt market is responsible for everything now. That's why central banks clearly have chosen to manipulate and rig the debt market to the highest possible order. When you have this kind of situation, and you know this by following this blog, where central banks are in here buying it all, there is not one single asset that has a price discovery mechanism behind it. If the debt market itself does not have a real price discovery mechanism in it, generally you have buyers and sellers. Buyers and sellers generally argue back and forth in the open market as to where fair value is for any particular asset, even debt, even currency, no matter what it is. Now, when you have central banks in here buying it all, keeping rates suppressed, you understand? There's no price discovery, and understanding that the debt market is the key to the entire system. Suppressed rates here, now going on since the last meltdown here, have created an alternative universe that would not exist. The price of housing would not be where it is today. The stock market would be nowhere near where it is today. Even the value of currency, which is evaporating, would not be where it is here either. Central banks are in full 100% control of the economy, the markets, and the financial system as is. So they control the entire world. They control the disbursement of information. They're the ones responsible for floating out whatever creatures they want to float out into propaganda ministry to tell you some kind of a tale. And of course, it's all meant to deceive you, distract you, have you look here, not look over there. Central banks are the most crafty, devious institutions in the world. I mean, they are the enemy. Meanwhile, they're trying to convince you that it's the blue team or the red team or what religion you may be or whatever skin color you have or whatever it might be. They're trying to distract you with all that to keep the blame off of them. If they run the economy, the financial system, the markets, they control it all. And they control the flow of information. They're the ones that dictate your lives to you. You understand? It goes so far beyond anything that most people have even the slightest comprehension of, but it's a fact. Anyway, I was just writing a few things down here today. The stock market had its first weekly loss in 5 last week now. The market doesn't make any sense to anybody, including me right now, obviously. I've had a couple of bad calls here as of late. The market, every single time, it seems to want to roll over. When we see the MMRI, Mannarino Market Risk Indicator, climbing, we start seeing bonds selling off. just a miracle happens. All of a sudden, you're getting 10 basis points drop in the 10-year yield in one day. This is not normal, okay? So we understand who's doing this. This is the Fed. They're buying all the debt. They're keeping rates suppressed. Keeping rates suppressed opens up a doorway for cash to make its way into risk assets. In this case, it would be the stock market. It's going to be a terrible price to pay for this. I think we're all very aware of it. Again, it also comes down to the presidential election cycle. Look into the Federal Reserve, what they do to the markets during a presidential election cycle. They work together with, in this case, it's going to be the brain dead thing sitting behind the Resolute desk to keep the market propped up. So the president or whatever is sitting behind the desk here can tout that. But he's keeping his fingers crossed. You remember that 2 weeks ago? The president keeping his fingers crossed that the Federal Reserve will provide us with a soft landing. But I thought it was his economic policies, because whenever they float out some kind of a positive news on the economy, which we get none, then it's his economic policy. But if we have a hard landing, then it's not his, it's the Fed. You understand? This is how politics work. It's a joke on a grand scale. With regard to Bitcoin and crypto, has been doing phenomenal last week. Bitcoin over 31,000. I already told you about crude oil. In my opinion, and I'm going to say it one more time, I've been telling you this for quite a long time, moving forward, commodities are the place to be. These are real things, okay? None more so than commodities that have been suppressed beyond anyone's wildest dreams. I'm talking about gold, more specifically physical silver. Load up on it. Massive effort to keep this debt market from blowing up. That's a little bit what I wrote down here. Every time, again, 10-year yield starts to rise, the whole yield curve starts to move up, a miracle happens. It just happens to drop. That is the Fed. They're buying all the debt, making sure that doorway to risk assets stays open. Stocks get propped up. We got a lot of warnings here. We got Goldman Sachs warning of a drop in the market. Okay, all right. We haven't even had a pullback or a correction, and I don't even know how freaking long anymore. It doesn't happen. When you have this situation here, suppressed rates, cash moving into the stock market, it's just all fake. There's no price discovery in this market. The economy is worsening faster than we've ever seen. And in order to keep it propped up, they got to borrow more cash. More cash must be pulled into the now. Let's see what else they throw at us. What's the next crisis going to be? Again, we go from crisis to crisis to crisis. That's it. That's how it works. Anyway, so massive yield curve inversion. I'm just looking at things I wanted to cover with you here. Massive effort to keep the bond market appearing stable, and the instability here in the debt market is in our face. Every time it starts to sell off, it starts getting, bought up by the Fed. All right, people, look, we got it covered here. We know, I think, what we have to do. It doesn't change a damn thing. You and I are never going to deviate from our plan. Betting against the debt, becoming your own central bank. Let them play their games with commodities. These are real things. In an environment where commodities are priced in dollars, the U.S. dollar's purchasing power is evaporating. That's the real root cause of inflation, as central banks, none more so than the Fed, continue to inflate. You understand? Tell me again where a central bank's single power resides in its ability to inflate. Again, do you remember the panic during the debt ceiling escapade here? Oh no, we can't let this happen because we could have taken back the system. If in fact we would have defaulted on the debt, the central bank, in this case the Fed, would have started to die. Within a few weeks, the Federal Reserve would have been no more. Okay, the Federal Reserve, if we prevent them from issuing one single dollar, in this case, if we would have started a domino effect around the world and taken down every other central bank. That's it. But of course, it wasn't allowed to happen. The whole nonsensical deal put together by McCarthy and Biden, no spending. You realize there was not $1 of spending was actually cut, nothing, zero. As a matter of fact, what this whole debt deal guaranteed is we're going to borrow a lot more, trillions more. Okay, no spending cuts at all. It's insane how it was sold to the American people, and they just bought it. They just bought it like they always do. They do exactly what they're told. People march themselves to the slaughter. They don't need armed guards with bands on their wrist telling them to walk into the gas chambers or anything else. They just do this freely on their own now. You understand? That's what this has come down to. All right? This guy here loves you from the heart. I mean that with all I got. If you think this video has been important, I would appreciate that thumbs up. It's so important. Please give this video a thumbs up. It lets the video get shown. I greatly appreciate that. Share this stuff. Comment on what I've said here. I would really appreciate it. I will see all of you in the morning, and it's going to be just lovely as always. All right? Take it easy.